download this first application on your Mac, and then this is how basically it will look like. Right now for me it is running Olama here, and after running this I just need to, so if I write this command called Olama list, I'm sure you guys, I hope you guys can see my terminal window. Yeah, so these are the three models which I have downloaded. One is DeepSeek R1 8 billion parameter, or DeepSeek R1 1.5 billion, and Llama 3. So I can just run Olama, and I would say if I have to Olama run Llama 3. So if I just do this Olama run space model name, I can start interacting with this entire model locally on my system, and I can turn off my internet, and I don't need to pass in my email ID and anything like that. I just download this thing on my system, right? And I can directly pull it here. One thing you might need to do here is yeah, one thing you might need to do here is you need to, if you don't have already installed these models, so you need to write this command called Olama pull space DeepSeek R1 8 billion. I'm using 8 billion because I'm using the Mac M1 Pro on my machine. That's basically my working machine right now. So I have seen like 8 billion parameter is sufficiently large enough for the RAM. I have 16 GB of RAM, so it basically works well on my PC, and I can start using it. So you need to write this command Olama pull DeepSeek R1 8 billion to actually download this model. Once it is downloaded, then you can just confirm by writing Olama list. So it will show you like this. If it is there, then you can basically start using it, and you can just write the same command, which is Olama run space the model name. Right. So this is like one way of downloading DeepSeek locally via Olama, and you can use it via CLI. And because it is running here, you can also check localhost. So this is the URL. So once you run this URL, you can confirm that Olama is running, and locally you can build any API call for this. You can write like /API, and you can like start calling your models. So there is one more way how you can use it. Like one is definitely this way, where you can download everything from your CLI. If you are somebody who wants to use it not from the coding perspective, maybe just you want to test it, maybe just you want to maybe replace your ChatGPT use case. There's another useful software here. It's called LM Studio, which I've been using a lot. LM Studio comes with a web UI, so you can download this, and you can also like start having a conversation with it. So there's a few system requirements. For example, on Mac, you need to have M1, M2, M3. Right now, it doesn't support the Intel based, and you need to have 16 GB plus RAM. If you have all these system requirements, on same goes on Windows and Linux, then you can go ahead and download this. And let me show you the LM Studio, it will look like something like this. If you click on this discover button or the search icon, you can see all the models here. I have already downloaded the DeepSeek Quen. So you can also check out like some latest model. I think in this case, Quen 2.57 billion instruct parameter is also there. So you can download this model, and you can pretty much use this. This is like 4.68 GB, and you can, once you download this, you can select the model from here. As you can see right now, for me default is R1 Distill Quen 7 billion, and I can just have a conversation with it. I can like talk to it. I can like write something. Um, Let me clear the chat and I'll say, hey, what is DeepSeek? Okay, I need to select the model first. Let me select this model. And while I'm selecting the model, you can also see I can select the context length, which is by default, the model supports up to 13,000. Actually, not 13,000. It's like 1,031,000 tokens. So I can configure based on like how large context window I need for this. What's the GPU offload, what's the CPU threshold size. All these things you might not need to change in the first run, but you can just like first click here and select the model, and I'll click on the load model. So it'll load the model here, and then you can basically start using it. That's basically another way of how you can use from LM Studio without interacting with CLI. If you're somebody who is maybe not a developer, maybe like even a developer, but you want to just use a UI to interact with DeepSeek, this is how you can basically use that. While it is loading, I'll also show you the developer tab here. Now, similar to Olama, this also gives you APIs like this, which you can use, which is very similar to OpenAI-like endpoints. If you are somebody who has been working with OpenAI APIs, so you don't need to change a lot of code base. You can just like use these endpoints slash chat completions or slash completions, and you would be able to continue with that. Okay, I think the model is ready, so I can chat with it. So as I said, as you can see that this is basically how it gave me the response back, and it took 24.06 token per second, 43 tokens, and you can see all the details here, whatever basically you needed to get started with. Let me now eject this because I don't want to keep the model on my RAM. So I'll close LM Studio for now. And I will introduce you to something called, so there are like two ways how you can go ahead and start building this. First, I'm going to introduce you the Lang graph, which is one of the way where you can build AI agents using LangChain ecosystem. And you can pretty much, it's like one of the very popular framework to build agents, and you can organize different nodes, and you can create nodes based on what use case you have. And then you can basically write a Python script, put it there, like you can identify what task you need. For in this case, we'll be doing and we'll be building a research-based agent. So we'll give it a research-based task. We connect this with Olama or the local language model, and then we'll build that. If you are somebody again who is like not interested in like building it from the code point of view, I have something interesting which I just want to share quickly. This is called Anything LLM. Now, this is one of the interesting way of using these large language models and building AI applications locally with only completely using GUI. So they do have like very similar interface as similar to LM Studio. So what I can do is I'll just quickly show you the Anything LLM. Yeah. So if you can see this right now, last time I did a webinar, we basically tested one agent with it. So you can create a new workspace. Let me say this is my DeepSeek workspace. And I'll save this. And I can click on the settings here. And in the general settings, you can see I have some default providers. I can either use the default system or I can use something, say local Olama, sorry. So in the Olama, you can see I can select the models because these are the models which I have already downloaded. So I'm going to select the DeepSeek R1 8 billion and I can set the max number of tokens. I'll save the Olama settings and you can see now I am using DeepSeek locally on my machine, and this will give me an entire UI based workflow where I can control all the chat settings, like what should be the query mode, how long the history should be, like how many messages should this chatbot save, what's the system prompt. You can configure all those things, what's the response, LM temperature, and stuff like that. Along with that, if you are somebody who have heard RAG and maybe you want to build your own custom second brain, you have like a lot of documents which you want to just use and you don't want to pay anything to OpenAI or maybe any other cloud provider, this is a great way to get started with. So they have a vector database inbuilt. Now, how to use this is something which is interesting. So if I go here directly, and if you look at this icon, which is like the upload icon, so I can upload all my documents directly to anything LLM. Now this will act as a knowledge base to whatever language model I'm using. In this case, I'm using DeepSeek. So I've already, you can see uploaded a bunch of things. You can just like click here and upload it from your PC, or maybe you can use a particular URL here. So I have used 100x Engineers HTML website, as you can see, and I have one curriculum overview and a learning outcome docs. So these are the two things. I'll basically select these two and I'll move to the workspace. So now I have moved all the documents which I want LLM to use as a knowledge base, and it can automatically detect this, create a vector database out of this, which is something understandable by LLM, which means like LLM now can understand whatever docs I'm providing here, and I can just save and embed. So once I save and embed, it will basically, yeah, so now I can start a conversation. Let me see. Hey, what is this curriculum? Okay, I think I have one issue. Let me go back and test this one. Yeah. So this was one of the response which I basically got. I want to build an LLM-based application. Will this curriculum help me? So this was the response from uh, anything LLM, right? It basically went ahead and it basically read all the documents which I gave it. This was like in lecture 3 under context. It mentions that learning about emergent abilities of LLMs. These were the things which I have mentioned in the particular doc which I uploaded here. So this was the talk which talks about the curriculum of 100x. And because now this model has access to the documentation, it can basically augment the prompt with all the right context and it can give me the answer. So it basically said, yes, the curriculum will help you build a large language model, and here is why. So these were the things which it basically summarized from the documentation and the knowledge base which it had, right? There is one more thing which I want to show before moving to the next part is their agentic capabilities, right? So if you click on the agent configuration, you need to select a particular model here, and then you can configure skills. So if you click on the configuration of skills, here, if you remember our agent architecture, I'll basically, yeah, which has like memory, tool calling, RAG, knowledge base, and all those things. Now, all these components you can now configure here directly from anything LLM dashboard, which is everything running locally on your PC. So if you want to work with RAG and the long-term memory, you can basically like check this and create basically upload your documentation and basically like put your long-term memory here, put the documentation to increase the memory and do RAG, which we have also done. If you want to scrape website, you can also provide links. This is something which I tested already. I provided the 100x engineers website link and I basically gave it here. You can summarize and stuff like that. You can generate answers, save files to the browser. You can connect with web search. You can do an SQL connector if you're somebody who works with databases and who wants to plug in all the records which is sitting there, maybe in your Postgres, in your any SQL-based database. So you can use a SQL-based connector, which you can basically run. And that is also a very interesting use case in an enterprise where somebody wants to just talk about, say, as a company, I have a record of 1,000 students, but everything is in my database, which is built on top of SQL. I want a natural language interface through this. So this could become your natural language interface, which means I can just write a command, or I want to see who is the student that has the degree in computer science, also in machine learning, went to Harvard and did all these things. So what it'll do, it'll take this query, take this data, convert this into an SQL query, and basically search across the database which we have, and then give me the response back in. So, and you can also create your own custom skills. So they do have a docs which basically talks about how can you build your own custom agent skills, and you can create a plugin here, and you can basically continue using everything from the UI itself. So this is more like an overview of anything LLM, and very useful for people who do not want to go to the building route from the first step itself. And this could be like even for developers as well as for non-developers, because even as a developer, I want to first save my time to test the output quality, and this is what I prefer and I recommend to everyone. Instead of you spending time into writing code and basically building a workflow, just find out what's the use case and how can you improve the output quality, which you can do by using something like this instead of like writing anything. So you provide enough knowledge, you create the knowledge base, you craft your prompts, your system prompts, you add your skills. If everything is working fine and it is providing the high quality output, then you can convert this into a code-based workflow, because now you can control and now you can maybe like scale this thing up, right? So this is like a very great practice to start MVP. And again, improvise your agent here, improvise your RAG pipeline here, and once everything works well, it is giving the output, then you can like start writing code, which gives a lot of advantage to even people who are like not very good at coding, right? But yeah, this is something which I wanted to share. Now, second part, which now it'll be more beneficial for coders, like people who have either worked with Python in the past or maybe JavaScript. So we're gonna like quickly check. This is something called LangGraph. Now, LangGraph is an agentic framework, which is basically built by LangChain, which was a company who used to like provide chaining and workflows library, open source library, and you can control, you can build what all agents basically I showed as an example of this, where you can like increase the long-term memory, you can add the, you can say custom documents, ability to scrape websites, connect to internet, connect to SQL and everything like that. You can now all do the same things here with LangGraph as well. This has also been used by companies like Uber, GitLab, Replit. So a lot of like companies are now using this in production, so which also makes it like one of the highly recommended and production ready framework if you're a developer to build this. You can go to the docs if you are somebody who is just starting it, and you can check their docs, how to get started, the basics of it. I would prefer using this locally, but they do have an online version which is basically the cloud hosted version. You can also check that out. But so this is like a basic version how you can like build a simple chatbot. As you can see, it just takes you a couple of lines to actually get started with building a chatbot, and you have all your uh, graphs. And this is basically an important concept here. I think I'll just like go to the concept right now. Yeah. So I'll just introduce you to this term first. There are like many type of agentic architecture out there. I have personally used tool calling agents, multi-agent, reflection-based agent. So these were like some of the popular ones. Uh, One major difference, and there's a spectrum between how autonomous these agents can be. That is how you can define a particular agent, right? For example, if I just want to automate my email pipeline, which means like if somebody is sending me an email, I can reply back to them with my writing style, and I can also give them some context about 100x. For example, most of the people email me about, okay, what is this course about? They have some question about the curriculum. Do you cover this part? Do you teach this part? What I can do right now, I can upload my curriculum doc and all the things which I mentioned on the website and provide that as a knowledge base, and then set up one workflow which can be a chain, right? So which means like we can identify what are the step it needs to take. Step number one, it will take the email in and then basically read the email, use LLM, provide a context, and then send it back to the data. And there would be a second way of how we can also do this is by building an autonomous agent, which means instead of me writing all these steps that first you should do this and then use LLM, then in the step number two you do this and then you end the workflow. You give a goal to this agent. For example, in this case, just reply back this email based on the context which you have and make sure that you receive okay or a confirmation back. So unless until it basically gets or it completes the goal, it runs in this loop, which means like maybe first time it sends something which is not appropriate, maybe it's not up to the mark, and the user can respond back, okay, I need more information. So this agent can run into loop and can keep on doing that unless until it basically reaches the final goal. So based on what kind of problem you're solving, you can basically decide the level of controls you need in terms of the router capabilities, or in terms of like either building a step-by-step workflow or building the autonomous one. In this particular case, what I want to build today is a simple research-based agent, because this is something which I use a lot. Whenever I do these webinars or I conduct lectures, I spend a lot of time in terms of finding a topic, going to the deep research and understanding what is coming up next, and then consolidating everything into an easily digestible information. So for that, I would be using a more step-by-step workflow. I don't want the fully autonomous part here right now. Um, I'll open my cursor right now. Now let me zoom a little bit. I hope you guys can see this. This is one of our agent, which I use LangGraph here, and they have already open sourced this repo. I basically added few customization on top of it, but this is what the architecture looks like. You have a search query. So I have used here a search service called Tavily, this one. So you have option, either you can use this one, Tavily, or you can also use Perplexity, right? I know a lot of people know Perplexity, and even the APIs for Perplexity is like better than the Tavily. The only problem is that Perplexity APIs are paid. So if you are somebody who just wants to test everything out for free, or maybe like you're not ready to basically give your credit card money, the details basically to Perplexity, and then use their APIs. You can start with the Tavily, which gives you 1,000 free API credits every month. So you can like maybe build a MVP level bot or MVP level agent, which has access to 1,000 APIs per month, and it can still run and do a research for you. So I basically use this, and let me show you the next step. I need to just open my browser. So you go here, you need to log in first, and so if you log in, this would be the overview page. You need to create one API key. That's the step number one. So create one API key, click here, add the name. You can add a limit monthly usage. Instead of 1,000, you can also say 50, just to be safe, so that if your agent maybe runs into an infinite loop, it will not cross a threshold. Say you have given the monthly usage, add the name, and then you can confirm this. This will be the API key. I'm not going to reveal my API key, and you should also not reveal your API key, and make sure you keep it secret all the time, because this is linked to your account. If somebody gets this API key and they start using it, they will not get charged for anything. You will gonna get charged because it is like associated with your account. So keep it private, keep it secure. But once you get this, you can copy this, and for this use case we are running everything locally. So you can create one env file. Now this is how your env file should look like. If you are using Tavily API key, then you can just write your API key in front of here, the Tavily API key. If you're using Perplexity, you can use the Perplexity API key here. In this use case, in this particular step, I'm going to use Tavily API key. Once I put this, I have already did that in .env file. I can go to this file called graph, and this is the file where you create nodes. So how LangGraph works is you provide different nodes for different tasks. For example, we are building a deep researcher using Olama and DeepSeek. It takes a particular topic and then it connects with Tavily or Perplexity. It uses that to search internet and basically get all the data. So it basically does the research, get all the data and create a summary out of it. Once it has all the summary, it will also do the reflection exercise. Now this is where it is able to understand whether whatever output the LLM has generated, does it make sense? Is it actually relevant to the topic which user has provided? After doing this reflection exercise, if there is something which is missing or maybe something which is wrong or maybe something which LLM needs to correct, it can again do the loop, which means it can go search the query, get the data again, create the summary or update the summary, and then continue this unless you stop it or unless you provide a threshold. So you can also provide different thresholds here, like how many times you want it to search or yeah, stuff like that. So this is like a very common, you can say, or a simple way of like presenting this into an architecture. Once you know, okay, these are the things you need. So I need a search node or maybe like a query node which can do the research and connect to this Tavily API. I need one node which can do summarization. I need one node which can reflect back, and one thing which can just give me the output back. So I go back here, I create nodes for everything. Now these are the Python functions. If you are not familiar with Python, there's one more hack of using this. This is called the LangGraph GUI. Actually, first I'll show you. So all of this code, by the way, is written completely by the LangGraph AI and the cursor for me. But I'll just like quickly mention what all nodes we are using. We are using generate query, we are using web research, summarize sources to summarize everything, reflect on the summary, and then finalize the summary, and then like route the research, which basically is the routing part, whether it needs to go back to the search or can it like produce that as an output. Let me now run this LangGraph. So this is the command you need to write here. I'll share the repo, the GitHub repo of this in one of the docs. So after this masterclass, we'll show you a QR code. You can basically scan that QR code and send us docs, and I'll basically like give you the docs and repo of all the code which we have written so far. So I need to run this command called LangGraph dev, and if I run this, this is the output on my screen. And as you can see, all the nodes which we have created, these are the nodes on my screen. Either you can create using Python if you want to configure it, but LangGraph also gives you this very nice little UI. So you can also create nodes directly from here, and you can also debug everything. So let me first show you how it works. As I mentioned, this is the architecture which we initially built. We have a topic, we have a search query, then it basically search. It does the research using web search, Tavily API in this case, create the summary and identify when it needs to reflect and continue this point. So this is the same representation in the LangGraph. So this is the graph and these are the nodes. You can put any research topic. So let me put DeepSeek R1, and I can manage the configuration here. So you can create a new configuration. In this case, I've already created one. This is called DeepSeek. And you can provide the name of the llama, name of the local LLM here. This is important. By default, it uses Llama 3.2 because we don't have Llama 3.2 right now. I have DeepSeek R1. How do you get the name of this? Either you can just check your OLlama. So you need to run this command olama space list, and these are the model which is now installed on my PC. So I can just copy this DeepSeek R1 8 billion, I paste it here, and this is an important setting which is max web research loops. As I mentioned that this is a loop which we are running into. So every time it feels that there is something missing or maybe something which can be improved in this entire document, the research document, it will go and it will do the web search again. But we have to restrict it because every time we do a web search, it basically costs us an API credit, especially in the Perplexity, it will be somewhere around like few cents. So you can put a number here, like this is the maximum number of time you can do web research. I have now put right now as 3, and then you can configure whether are you using Tably or using Perplexity. If you're using Perplexity token, so you need to select that here. If you're using Tably like me, you can just keep the default. And then you can save this and you can just click on this. So it will activate this particular configuration. And now let me run this. So as you can see, this started with generate query, which was our first node. It'll take some time because everything is running locally. And by the way, that's the best part. I can turn off my internet. Maybe I can go to a mountain and I can just like start building all these agents, and it can run, it can do all the research. However, it won't be able to do the web search in that case. But if I have a knowledge base ready for me, or if I want to build an agent for other use cases which does not require web APIs, I can pretty much do that. Now, if you have noticed that it has moved from generate query to web research, now it is summarizing the sources. And as you can see, like every step, whatever this agent is doing, it is also writing the logs for it. So I can see the logs here. By this time, it got some articles, bulletin.com/artificial intelligence DeepSeek. This was a link which it found, and it basically suggested that this is the most relevant content from the source, and it basically gave me some summary of the DeepSeek R1. So right now it is in that summarization part, and as you can see, like it's still running. So what processes it is doing, it's gonna highlight there in this particular graph. So right now it is thinking, as you can say, and it is thinking out loud. So this is the way how DeepSeek thinks in the XML format. It is telling that, okay, so I need to generate a summary based on the provided search result. Let me start by reading through all the information carefully. So now it is like reading all the information, and that's basically like very, very fascinating to me because you can see a large language model thinking in front of your eyes and taking decisions on its own. And by the way, like one of the interesting part here is that you can also teach DeepSeek how to think. So if you observe there is a trend, maybe in this particular format, that it is not taking the right decision, I can actually give it a system prompt and I can mention specifically use these 5-step approach. And just to give you one more resource for that, I have actually made a prompt sheet. Let me quickly share that. I think I have right now. Yeah. So this is one of my prompt sheet, which is like very, very helpful for if anybody is trying to build agent, or maybe you're using DeepSeek to build any application. This is one of the very famous prompt, which is also given to us by the DeepSeek team. It is very popular on the Reddit local llama community. So what we are doing here is that you define the purpose, and because these models are like slightly more advanced and they behave differently than the ChatGPT, so they need like a different way of prompting them. So you need to define the purpose, you need to define the planning rules, you need to define the format rules, and what kind of output do you want, right? So in this planning rules and the format rules, you can actually ask it to create a step, you can ask it to change the thinking process and all the things. So if tomorrow you want to build, say, an AI agent, or maybe like AI marketer, AI salesperson, you can write the purpose of this agent, you can write the planning rules, you can write the format rules, you can write what's the kind of output you want, and you will basically get it here. So I think this was one of the example which I did for the last one, where I want to build an AI second brain. So this is the purpose, these are the planning, so follow this 4-step process. And because we understand that it can change the thinking process just by like mentioning that in the planning rules. So if you put anything here, it'll gonna implement that, and it's gonna use this to plan the application, right? So that's basically like one interesting part as compared to OpenAI, GPT, Anthropic. Uh, these models can also work on their thinking parts, and you can basically control that. Okay, so now we are going back, I think, in the loop, because I have mentioned the iteration to three, which means like it can go back and do the web search 3 times. I think it has went to the reflection part here. So right after this, completing the summary, it started the reflection process, and it basically mentioned that what are the specific performance metrics and benchmark used to evaluate DeepSeek R1 compared to the leading AI models like GPT. This was one of the questions which it basically came up with after the reflection. Now it is doing the web search based on the question which it got after the reflection. Now this is like very, very interesting, because at this point AI is like reflecting back on its own generation, finding what and coming up with a question and then making the AI search. And this is very, very similar to how you basically, if tomorrow I want to hire an AI researcher in my team as an intern, this is pretty much exactly how he will work or he will function. Like, he has a goal. He will basically use some tools, maybe a web search, maybe Perplexity, and like create this summary and then reflect back whether this summary is appropriate for the topic which we are providing. If not, then it will basically come up with more questions, more research points, and does that. And that is exactly what it is doing, right? So this can actually go long. I think right now I'll just show you the current output. It is like summarizing the outputs and completing it. It'll take some time, but that is what like an OLAMA deep researcher look like, completing the research process using the local model, the DeepSeek R1, and it's basically doing the research about the DeepSeek itself. So once it finalizes the research, I'll make sure I'll put that also in a doc, and you guys can basically see and judge the output quality of it. So, but yeah, that's most of it what I had planned today for to share. One thing I can do is like I'll do a quick summary, because I know I have shared a lot of things. Just starting from the first part, how can you use DeepSeek? So we discussed about, like, first you can go to deepseek.com. You can directly use this on the UI, but you need to give your phone number, email, password. If you're not comfortable doing that, there are two options. Either you can go with the OLAMA, which is an application you can download on your machine, and OLAMA has all these models, so you can basically check models from here. In this case, I want to use DeepSeek R1. So after downloading OLAMA, I need to run my terminal, and I need to run this command called OLAMA pull. OLAMA pull / DeepSeek. If I run this command, it will download this particular model on my local machine. And after this, I can confirm by writing OLAMA list. If I write this command, I'll see all the models which are there. And then I can just like, if I want to test anything, I can do OLAMA run the model name. It'll spin up a model locally. I think right now I don't want to take a risk because I already have loaded a model. So it will either crash my RAM. But you can run this command and it'll open up the model locally on your machine. And this is one way how to use it. It will also deploy this model locally on your system at this URL, which is localhost 11434. If you want to connect to a local API, this is the URL which you can use. If you are somebody who do not want to go with the code route and you want to use something with the UI, so I suggested you can use LM Studio, which is another software. And these are system requirements to download this software. Make sure you go through system requirements first, then you can download it if it satisfies. And after downloading this, you can see this is how it looks like. We discussed that how can you use something like DeepSeek locally without paying anything, or maybe like without having the CLI here. This is a different version how you can use with a graphical user interface. You need to click on the search icon here, then click on the DeepSeek, search maybe the DeepSeek R1. In this case, I have already installed the R1 distill model. And after installing that, you would be able to see this in your search bar. You need to select the model, click here, load this model. Once you load it, you have like some certain settings. You can increase the context and stuff like that. And then you can basically have this window where you can upload the document, you can have a conversation similar to exactly like ChatGPT. If you want to build an agent or an REG solution without writing code, we also learned about anything LLM. This is another software which we can use. So it connects with local models. Let me go back here. So you can create a new workspace. Once you download anything LLM, it will basically ask you to which model or which local model you want to connect it to. And you can click here, you can create a new workspace. I'll just show you the existing workspace. So once you create a workspace, it will look like this. You can configure the settings, you can configure the chat settings where you can update the LLMs, you can create, maybe configure the chat history, system prompt, the queries, temperature. You can also add knowledge base to it. One of the way how you upload documents is by clicking on this upload icon, add all the documents here, click on these documents, you can move to the workspace. And once it has moved to this workspace, or you can also use a website here in this case, then you are ready to start having a conversation with it, and it would be able to fetch your documents and give you the response back. This is a very basic level of RAG happening here, but if you want to configure it to a different level, then you can click on the agent configuration in the settings. You can configure the agent skills, you can add RAG here, you can scrape websites, add summarization, web search, SQL connector, and you can also build your custom skills by going to this doc, and you can write your plugin JSON handler file, and whatever skills you want, you can basically add here. And this is like one of the way how you can use local models and build something like an RAG system on top of it and add agentic skills. If you are someone who wants to take it to the next level, now you have, and this is one of the model which I prefer, is you first test all the outputs, the quality of the outputs. You test different models locally with the UI. You don't need to write code for this. Once you have all the models ready, you have all the prompts ready, then you can start building this as an application. And this is where we have introduced LangGraph. Now, LangGraph basically is an open source framework built by LangChain. This will help you to build AI agents, and this has like both UI and the Python code. So once you download this, and this is one of the projects which we have, which we built Ollama Deep Researcher. How it works, it takes a topic, it connects that with a search provider. You can use either Perplexity or you can use Tavily, and it takes the topic, it does a web research, creates a summary, and then does the reflection, whether it needs to improvise this summary or need to add anything based on the topic which the user provided. And once it is ready, then it can basically give you the output. So that was the thing. And then we identified what all nodes we need to build, because LangGraph works on nodes. So you create multiple nodes. In this case, we need these 5 nodes, actually 7 nodes. One to generate query, another to do web research, then the third one to summarize the sources, and then reflect back on the summary, and then finalizing summary. And one is to identify like when to reflect back or when to give the answer. This is the route research. So once you create all these nodes, you can run this application locally. This is called LangGraph, LangGraph space dev. This is the command which we ran. And if you run this, yeah, so this is the output should look like. And because I think at this point, as you can see, it gave me all the uh, parts. You can add the research topic here. You can configure the settings. You can add your local LLM here. You can put in here. You can add your research loop, how many times you want it to do the web research. Add your search API key here, Tavily or Perplexity. If you're using Tavily or Perplexity, you need to also create an API key. So you need to go to the Tavily account, as I showed you, create one API key from here, copy this API key, paste it in your .env file here. And once you do that, you just make a change here in this particular dashboard. Let me do that. Yeah. So you select this search API key and turn this on, which is basically activating this particular configuration. And then you can add the topic and start submit. So it will basically do the research for you, and you can go through all the steps while it is doing it. So So this is the research actually which it did. Like it gave us an overview, architecture efficiency, cost efficiency, use cases, limitation, restrictions. Maybe I'll basically put this up in the doc and share with all of you. Yeah, this was basically a summary of what we did, and I know it was like a lot of it. So I hope you guys have taken some notes. If not, I'll share a doc with all of you. Basically, you can just ask for it at the end of the session, and I'll compile all the steps as well as the links which we have used here. So yeah, that was